The occupational factors that a disability insurance carrier considers when you apply for disability benefits. What you don't know can bite you. Hey, I'm Nancy Cavey. I'm a National ERISA Disability and IDI attorney, and I want to welcome you to this week's episode of Winning Isn't Easy. Before we get started, I've got to give you a legal disclaimer. The Florida Bar Association says I have to say this, so I have. This podcast is not legal advice. Nothing, however, is going to ever prevent me from giving you an easy-to-understand overview of the disability insurance world, the games that carriers play, and what you need to know to get the disability benefits you deserve. So off we go. Making the decision to reduce your hours and apply for disability benefits or to stop work and apply for total disability benefits can be hard. I watched my father make that decision, and it was not an easy one for him to make. Now, you may think that once you decide that you're going to file your disability insurance claim, that a check is going to be overnighted to you, to your house. After all, your doctor has told you to reduce your work and apply for your residual disability benefits or to stop work totally. And even your employer supports your claim. But that's not how it works in the real world. How it works is that your initial application for your benefits is going to be reviewed by the disability carrier from three perspectives. Now, the first perspective is going to be, what are the terms of the policy or the plan? The second is going to be, what's the sufficiency of the medical proof that establishes that you're disabled as that term is defined by your policy or plan? And what's your occupation as that term is defined by your policy or plan? And how are you unable to do the material and substantial duties of that occupation? In this multi-part series, I'm going to concentrate on the occupational evaluation, so you know the factors that the disability carrier plan is likely to consider. And this is much more complex than you might think it would be based on a simple reading of your disability policy or plan. Today, I'm going to talk about three things. First, your specific occupational duties and what you have to know about the most important feature of your disability insurance policy or plan. Two, what were the specific physical and or mental requirements associated with each duty? And thirdly, how long do you have to perform each duty in the course of an average day or week? Got it? All right, let's take a break before we jump into these topics.
Have you been robbed of your peace of mind from your disability insurance carrier? You owe it to yourself to get a copy of Robbed of Your Peace of Mind, which provides you with everything you need to know about the long-term disability claim process. Request your free copy of the book at kvlaw.com today.
Welcome back to Winning Isn't Easy. You ready to get started? Your specific occupational duties and what you have to know about the most important feature of your disability insurance policy or plan. So what's the most important feature of a disability insurance plan or policy? In my opinion, it's the definition of occupation. There are actually four possible different definitions of occupation, and you have the burden to prove that you can't do the material and substantial duties of your own occupation. So if you don't know how your policy or plan defines the term occupation, it's going to be hard for you to prove your case and win your claim. So let's start with an analysis of the four different types of occupation definitions that we can see in your policy or plan. Number one, it's own occupation. Now, this can be defined as an own occupation policy that's going to pay you disability benefits if you can't perform the material and substantial duties of your occupation. But let's say you're a physician. Is your occupation as a physician just a generic definition? Is it your specialty? Is it your area of board certification? You better know the answer to that before you stop work and apply for your benefits. The second definition is what is called a transitional own occupation definition. Now, a transitional own occupation policy will pay you if you can't work in your own occupation or specialty, even though you could work in another field. However, if you exceed the amount of income you were making at the time you became disabled while working in another occupation, your monthly benefits can be reduced. What's the third definition? Well, it's a modified own occupation definition. This is a twist. It's a twist on your own occupation and the transitional own occupation definition. The policy will pay you if you can't work in your own occupation or specialty and you're not working in another field. And number 4 is any occupation. Now, many disability policies will have a 2-year own occupation provision. After 2 years, the standard of disability becomes an inability to perform the material and substantial duties of any occupation that you're capable of performing in view of your education, skills, and restrictions and limitations. The modified own occupation and the any occupation definitions are commonly seen in group ERISA disability policies or plans. Now, if you have a choice and you can afford it, you want to purchase an individual disability insurance policy known as an IDI policy because you want to insure your own occupation. Got it? Okay. Now that I have set the stage, let's talk about what a disability carrier does with your disability claim and the occupational forms that you fill out. Obviously, the question for the disability insurance carrier or plan is, what were your specific occupational duties prior to the onset of your disability? Now, this analysis is going to start with a review of the policy or plan definition of occupation. As you may have gathered, there's no uniform definition of occupation, and each policy or plan is different. What you think your occupation was as of the onset of the disability might not be how the disability policy or plan determines what your occupation was prior to the onset of disability. So there can be this huge disconnect that you need to understand. As part of the disability insurance application for your benefits, you were probably asked to complete a document that asked questions about your duties. That document, I'm sure, did not ask all the right questions about the physicality of your occupational duties, and I bet it didn't ask any questions about the social or intellectual or the cognitive duties of your occupation. What I suggest, and this is what I do with my clients, is that you write out all the occupational duties that you did and then add those duties that you can't do or can only do on a limited basis. So what you want to do is make sure you have a complete occupational description of duties generally, duties that you can't do, duties that you are having trouble doing. The next thing you ought to do is to get your employer's description of your occupational duties and then compare the two documents. They may not and probably are not the same. This is important because many disability policies or plans will define the term occupation as it is performed in the national economy and not how you perform it for your employer. Now, that's important because many disability policies or plans will actually define the term occupation by looking at the outdated Department of Labor publications called the Dictionary of Occupational Duties. And if you look up your occupation and read the description of the occupational duties in the DOTs, you'll be stunned to see how outdated this is. In fact, it hasn't been updated in probably 30 years. What I'm trying to do when I'm dealing with these occupational definitions is to create a blended occupational duty description that matches as closely as possible the policy or plan description, but also includes all of the duties that are material and substantial that you are having difficulty doing or can't perform. Now that we've got a description of your specific occupational duties prior to the onset of disability, the carrier or the plan is going to have more questions for you. In my next segment, I'm going to talk about what were the specific physical and or mental requirements associated with each duty. Got it? You thought this was going to be easy, didn't you? Well, it isn't. But we need to take a break to give you a chance to digest this information and think through what I've said. Okay, let's take a break.